What is something you thought was grossly exaggerated until it happened to you? Story 1: A panic attack. The movie show it as an almost humorous exaggeration of the severity, or so I thought. And then when it happened to me, I realized they are absolutely horrible. Edit wow. Thank for the gold, a very kind stranger indeed. Story 2: Insomnia. Not being able to sleep is maddening. When I was younger, I thought there was no way this could actually be a serious problem. I was wrong. Story 3: Depression. Just a few years ago, I would never have considered depression a serious illness on par with anything physical. When I heard depression, I would think, why can't people who suffer from it just go out and be merry and make themselves happy? Well, my friends, since then I've started grad school, moved to a new city, and I have sunk into a deep, deep, deep depression. The worst thing I have ever experienced in my life. It takes all of my willpower to get out of bed every day. I have no desire to do anything. And most days I just wish I would cease to exist. Depression and any type of mental illness is no joke. Edit to the person that give Reddit gold. Thanks for your kind gesture. To the people who have commented, I have read all your replies. Thanks a million for your kind words. And for those suffering from depression or any other type of mental illness, I wish you brighter days. How painful a badly cramping muscle is. Story 4: The pain of getting cheated on. Consequently, realizing you can't trust the person who you've given your heart to, I thought it was so dramatic and a call for attention when I heard other people complain about relationship problems. Little did I realize it was literally like a knife stabbing you in the chest. Story 5: The shitty things men do to women. I used to think that creepy messages, overt, and harassment were the exception to the rule. Then I had a friend show me what her online accounts, dating, social media, gaming looked like. It's nonstop. For everyone normal, benign message, there were 4 pictures of random dicks, 5 messages calling her a, and a couple semi-degrading or condescending messages. Blew my mind. I thought that girls always exaggerated it until I saw for myself. I don't know how they do it. I'd be tempted to just never go online or never reveal myself as female. Story 6: Putting down a pet. I held my best friend of 13 years' head in my hands as he slowly slipped away from me. It's been weeks and I still can't get past it. I have lost people I'm close to, and it didn't touch how hard this was. He wasn't just a dog, he was a family member. My cuddle buddy who slept in my bed with me every night from the time he was a puppy. I don't want another dog ever again. I just want my boy back. I would give up anything I have or ever will have to have him back. I miss you. And I love you, Link. Edit, thank you so much for all the kind words, and whoever gave me gold. I woke up to this, and it has made my day. Love you guys. Story 7: How loud guns are. I knew intellectually that they were noisy, but unconsciously assumed they were at movie or video game volume. Went to firing range and shot a variety of them. Even with ear protection, they still feel overpoweringly loud. And it's as clear as day you damage your hearing if you fire them without taking any safety precautions. Can't look at most movie gun fights the same again. Edit to everyone asking what hearing protection I was using. I had earplugs, and then those gun range ear muffs over top. Also, how hard it is to hit anything with a gun, especially a pistol. You think you're properly aiming down the sights. Then you fire, there's a big flash, and it kicks back in your hand. And you look at the target and realize you were way off, and that's taking your time in a controlled environment. I couldn't imagine trying to be accurate under pressure while trying to hit a small moving target, not without a shitload of training. Story 8: Bad period cramps. For those who do not know, cramps can vary in pain level with age. When I was younger, I thought I just had awesome pain tolerance or that cramps weren't really that bad, as I've had a lot of painful experiences, broken bones, chronic migraines, tears, sprains, strains, slips, the lot, and been okay. Then it all went to, for one day a month, I am in literally too much pain to stand up straight. I have to stamp my feet on the floor to keep from crying out if I'm for some reason able to get myself vertical and my feet to the floor. If I'm lucky enough to have the day off, I curl up around the toilet and just cry because I'm in so much pain I want to throw up. But since throwing up will make me feel better, I just lay there hugging Ralph the big white phone for moral support. It's so painful I can't think. It's easily at the same pain level as a bad migraine or throwing my back out, both of which I've experienced. Holy OW. Story 9: Falling in love. Lemony Snicket sums it up perfectly. One of the remarkable things about love is that despite very irritating people writing poems and songs about how pleasant it is, it really is quite pleasant. Story 10: Sleep paralysis. Edit, my sleep paralysis experience. It's like my eyes were awake, but my brain was still asleep. I couldn't move my body. I couldn't breathe. The harder I tried to regain my breath, the harder it was to breathe. I know it was pitch black in my room, but it was like everything was strobing colors, like dark, very deep colors. And there was a deep ringing in my ears. It only happened to me once, and it was terrifying. Story 11: Kidney stones. They're for real. Edit, one been asked for my story. I was out of country and on an excursion, if you will. Actually, when I felt something weird about 3 inches up and to the right of my belly button, I didn't have back pains until later. When I got back in town, the pain had gotten a little worse, and I thought nothing of it. The next day, I woke up, and it was more sharp pain. So I went to the local hospital. They did a sono to check me out. Spleen, appendix, and whatever else they checked for came back fine. They gave me some Vicodin and sent me on my way. I took these daily and was okay, but every once in a while, took a jolt and nearly brought me to my knees, but then went away. Fast forward to coming home, was on the plane back and started having sharp pains again, went to the restroom and pissed what looked like cranberry juice, had a small panic attack, and went back to my seat and took the Vicodin. Still had 6 hours of flight time left, was freaking out the whole way home. Back in the States, I went straight to the hospital, and they couldn't figure it out. Told them about the sono, and no kidney infection. I could see the concerned look on my DRS face, so they did a CT scan. A couple of hours later, my doctor calls. I have good news. It's only kidney stones. My initial reaction was, if that's good news, what did you think was wrong with me? Anyway, the report came back TMC. Too many to count. I had hundreds all over my kidney, but had a 9 millimeters stuck in my uterus. That night it moved, and I was laying in the bathroom floor throwing up and couldn't move because of the pain. I thought I was dying. Worst pain I could physically ever be in. My father had to come pick me up off the floor and take me to the hospital in the back of his Tahoe. They performed a lithotripsy, which isn't a walk in the park either, and went home that afternoon after passing 3 stones and who knows how many blood clots from the procedure. Since then, I've passed 2 more that were small, but still painful. Story 12, black ice. I had a suspicion it was mostly something people blamed for careless driving. Then I finally ran into some, didn't crash or anything, but honestly, though, my brakes had failed until I parked, stepped out of the car, and nearly fell from the slipperiness. Story 13, cyberbullying. In middle school, it wasn't even that big of a deal, because hardly anyone kept up with online happenings during those mid-90s dial-up days. I was aware that people would send awful emails to other classmates and harass them, but I didn't think it would hurt that much. Just shrug, pity the pathetic soul that wasted time out of their day to give you a nudge, and delete the message without looking back. While I didn't get an email, I got an entire website. Using the student directory, they posted my home address, phone number, and email address. They posted several quality images they took of me using those shoddy 320 by 240 digital cameras. I had this gallery dedicated to me, showing me at very unattractive angles, eating my lunch, walking down the hallway, and making a scrunchy laugh face. And there was text, so much text. Just this unbelievably long diatribe about how fat I was, how no girl would ever love me, how everybody makes fun of me, and how much a worthless piece of carbon-based I was. My friends discovered the website when an anonymous email circulated through the student body. They tried to address it to people who weren't in my circle, but some of them did approach me to tell me that this website existed. That's what gets me. It's a website he actually purchased and set up his own web domain to host this stuff, and it hurt reading all this stuff. It hurt seeing this getting sent to so many people. And while I was grateful to have some friends tell me about it, not everyone did, and nobody tried to assure me the things the website said were completely false. How was I supposed to know people didn't make fun of me or not? Was I really that hated, that toxic, that people would dedicate an entire week stalking me, taking photos, writing articles, and hosting a website exclusively about me? That's what hurts the most about cyberbullying, and something that I haven't been able to shake since. Cyberbullying doesn't make the victim feel like a victim. It makes the victim feel like they're a horrible person to everyone else, and that the problem is them. When I hear about people going through all the difficulty of making fake Facebook profiles to bait and snare unsuspecting victims, I'm doubly terrified for the state of today's bullying victims. It's so easy to do now. It happened 2 decades ago to me, and technology has since only made it easier to make it happen again. Edit fix that happened 20 years ago to me to happen 2 decades ago. The exact timing of this incident wasn't exactly 20 years ago. I was just rounding off to the nearest 10 to keep it simpler, and because I didn't want to do the 3 seconds of math. Story 14, I thought people who called in sick or whatever when threw out their backs were sissies. Then I threw out my back. Holy, it hurt to do pretty much anything. Story 15, the hate towards the Big Bang Theory. I thought people were just being mean and circle jerking. I decided to finally watch it, love it, and be contrarian. That show sucks. Story 16, sunburns. I'm a brown guy, and honestly, I thought my white friends were being dramatic about their sunburns. Then I decided to go fishing for 6 hours without any sunscreen. Sunburns. Story 17, my sister was in a car accident over 15 years ago, and still freaks out when a car gets too close. I thought it was just her being stupid until I was hit by a drunk driver. Now, Whenever I'm a passenger, I get really nervous and freak out if someone doesn't look like they're going to stop or like they're going to hit us. Story 18, abuse in a relationship. I always got mad at my cousin for not leaving an abusive guy and then got into an abusive relationship, and it was really hard to get out. Story 19, not to me, but to a very close friend, date rape. She simply wasn't the same person anymore. She went into a shell and refused to even seek help. It took almost 2 years of convincing to take her to a therapist, and 3 years after that for her to almost come back to her old self. But even now, she refuses to trust men. Story 20, Texas. And being a smartass, but I'm also being truthful. I've lived in a number of different places because I was a military brat and a vagabond, and I've encountered a hell of a number of different people. As an adult, moving to Texas surprised me. I thought I'd find it had been exaggerated, but the appetites, the personalities, the pride, all of it are bigger in Texas. They love their state. Story 21, you know, in movies when the scary monster psycho murderer is coming for a character and they just freeze in their tracks, you start yelling at the screen, run away, dumb. Yeah. Well, that totally happens if you get scared enough. Your whole body just freezes to the spot, even when you desperately want to run. It's horrible. Story 22, obsessive-compulsive disorder. I remember as a kid watching one of those MTV True Life documentaries about people with OCD and thinking how ridiculous it was. I mean, why can't these people just not wash their hands 50 times a day? Why can't they just lock the door once and be done with it? A few years later, when I was around 16, I started to develop some strange habits. For instance, if I heard even just 1 second of any song on my iPod, I would have to listen to the rest of the song in its entirety down to the last second. So if said song ended and I didn't get my iPod paused before the next song started, I would then have to listen to that song in its entirety. These are the first signs of horrible things to come. Over the next 5 years, or so, my OCD manifested itself into almost every facet of my life in different ways. The compulsions would get more and more complex to the point where I would spend hours trying to fix it. Life was miserable, and every day was a challenge. I could go on all day about the different compulsions and manifestations, but this is already the longest post I've ever made. I did get better for the most part. It's not ruining my life anymore, and it's pretty dormant most of the time, but every now and then it creeps up and tries to bite me. I've learned to fight it pretty well, though. TLDR, OCD sucks. Story 23, the whole your metabolism will catch up with you too. As a kid, I ate and ate and ate and was stick thin. Everyone warned me, and I laughed them off. Needless to say, I just lost 50 pounds. Story 24, longtime lurker, finally saw something I can contribute to, being it rather recent. ID say grief. My grandmother passed away on the 8th of this month. It was very unexpected, seeing as she had survived 2 bouts of cancer and a brain tumor and met her end due to a cold. I can still see her in her living room doing aerobics with an instructor, and streaming her Hindi serials were Bangladeshi on her phone. The last words I said to her were goodbye when I left her house about a week or so before she got admitted to the hospital. Me and her never had a great relationship. It was very rocky, and I was the worst granddaughter I could have been to her. I didn't go to visit her before she was already on life support. To this day, just the mere thought of that rips me apart limb from limb. The 2 weeks after were some of the worst days of my life. The thing is, they talk about grief in novels as this perpetual and sudden force that grips you and never lets go. They say it reduces you to this shell of who you once were, and every action and word becomes a challenge. And suddenly all you feel is anger at yourself, and this sense of doneness in regards to everything else. Breathing becomes a laborious task, and suddenly you become so aware of all the things around you. I never knew the walls were that shade. When did I buy those pair of shoes? Why did I never ask her about that? Why this? Why that? Why? I always used to think that novels were exaggerating. I always thought it would never be possible for a person to sink as low as that. I have never been more wrong. I remember I got pulled out of school early that day, about an hour before it happened. My mother, her ex-daughter-in-law, took me and my brother there, and God, there is nothing worse than knowing it's going to happen and waiting for it. The night before I'd gone in and visited her, just thinking about me made me want to throw up. Plastic snakes and cotton eyes, the haranguing beeps of the machines that kept her alive. Her hands were so cold. Someone had braided her hair. It wasn't fair, damn it. This woman, who had been through so much, survived a war, traveled all over the world and written books and done so much. Reduced to this, it wasn't fair, it isn't fair. All I could say was that I was sorry, and I couldn't even look at her. I threw up later on, over and over again, until I had nothing left inside me. The only things I had for the next 4 days were 2 cups of coffee and a small sandwich. I felt sick. I felt like a murderer. I lost about 5 kilograms in 4 days. If there was a God, he was playing death that day. At her janazah, it's a Muslim thing where the body is washed and laid out and you pray around it. and it's later followed by more praying at mosque. They were all telling me to look at her one last time, say goodbye, you'll never see her again. And at all, I took 1 2-second glance at the woman who I always thought was bigger than me, even though I was taller one glance and saw not a human, but a doll, and I lost it. It wasn't right, this wasn't right, she didn't belong there, I ran away, and my every breath of mine was akin to that of metal scraping metal. I tried to throw up, but ironically hadn't eaten enough to do so. I wake up every morning with her face behind my eyelids. I think, oh, but I'll see her again today, but I'm never going to see her again. I will never get to apologize to her. I am a heartless robot in human skin. I don't deserve to be here. She does. I am nothing. What I'm trying to say is, nothing can prepare you for grief. I had never lost someone this close to me before, and I never thought it would be this hard. I've talked with people and I laugh and make jokes about it and whatnot, but it's so hard. And I wouldn't wish this feeling on my worst enemy. There are knives inside you, it seems, and they dance and cut your insides into slick, red ribbons. Every time you think about it, I feel sick even writing this. Grief is so terrible, but sadly inevitable. To all of you who have lost somebody, I'm so very sorry for thinking that it hurt less than it did. It hurts so much more, and sadly, there's more to come. TLDR, grief is a knife that slips through the covers at night and slices every one of your fingers off as you idly watch. Throw 10. Would not recommend to any living, breathing being ever edit. I'm sorry in advance for any spelling grammatical mistakes. English is my second language. I also just woke up. Edit 2. I keep coming back to fix errors that I somehow didn't notice when I first wrote this. I need to get my together. Edit 3. What an overwhelming response. Thank you all for your kind words and being strong enough to share your own tales of grief. Remember, you're never alone in this fight. Best of luck to you all. Edit, for I know this is a throwaway, but some of these comments are so touching and caring and raw. I had to reply. I might check in from time to time, and I want you to all know that I'm grateful that you took the time to read this. Lots of love from this loser in Bangladesh. 3 restless leg syndrome for me. Thank God I don't suffer from it, but I was taking some meds, and it was one of the side effects. It's a strange and horrible feelings. Story 25. I always thought hearing adults talk about their nieces and nephews like they were such a huge part of their lives was stupid. I barely know any of my aunts or uncles or cousins or whatever. So it always seemed like they were just playing the niece card to make it seem like they have more responsibilities than they really do. Now, I still don't have any nieces or nephews, but my mom married a guy with a pregnant ex-wife when I was 15, and I tell you that kid is my girl. I've changed my entire lifestyle, my opinions, and how I treat others in the future, because of the responsibility I feel towards being there for her and setting a good example. I love her to death. I want to be a role model and live my life in a way that she can be proud of any day. I never realized what it felt like to watch a little baby grow up into a brilliant kid, or how important a child can be in your life, even if they're not yours. And she's not even my blood. I get it now. Story 26. Having mono. My freshman year in high school, there was about a mono going around, probably some crazy party. Most of the infected were upperclassmen, and there were around 6 students that were out for 2 to 3 weeks. Someone described it to me as being tired and sick all the time, so I just assumed it was like a long-lasting head cold sickness, whatever. No, that kicks you. I lost 10 pounds in 2 weeks because I couldn't eat, not only because of the vomiting diarrhea, but just a severe lack of appetite. Mono sucks. Story 27. Kidney stones. I thought my dad was just being a grumpy grumpster when he had them. Nope. Kidney stones are little bits of your remaining life force that have crystallized and must travel through tubes meant for liquid, not for sharp stones, and then out of the most sensitive part of your body. I was a grumpy grumpster that day. Story 28. A breakup. I thought there would be a 10-minute period where I would just be inconsolable. Then I'd probably move on and get a replica. I walked around the city a lot that weekend, and I still think about her every day. Story 29. Getting beat up. I went to a club with my guy friend. We were very close, but the club was letting guys and girls in at separate lines. So I waited in line with a friend of his friend. She got nasty and bitchy to some girls who cut us in line. So when we got inside the club, they tried to beat her up. I got in the middle, of course, trying to stop prevent it, but she ended up running away, and I got beat up on the floor by a group of girls for that dumb. To be honest, they looked really ghetto, and I had no idea if while I was on the ground face down getting beat up, they would pull out a knife or something. Death went through my mind during those long few minutes. The worst part was that everyone around us just watched, not knowing that I had done nothing to deserve it. It was terrible and a lot more traumatizing than I could ever have imagined. Still one of the worst nights of my life. Sigh. Story 30. Being harassed by an internet hate squad. People might say, oh, it's just words, but when someone summons a hate squad pointed at you, it's traumatizing. Story 31. I came home from work and caught my GF in bed with another guy. No problem there. I kicked her out of our house immediately, and she quit the casino we worked at together out of shame. 2 weeks later, I was arrested on my front porch on a charge of aggravated rape, which in Louisiana carries a life sentence. She had been downtown drinking until blackout, tripped, and hit her face on a parking block at about 4, so her face was, and the detectives believed her story. She even went so far as having a rape kit done at LSU Medical Center. The only problem was I had a party at my house that night, and never left. Multiple people crashed in my living room, so they didn't have to drive, and everyone placed me at home, thank God. I didn't go out that night. The detectives were utter to me and never apologized once Shannon's story completely unwound. Once they took off the handcuffs and let me go, they only said we'll be in touch, like I was still some sort of criminal. She got no punishment whatsoever for attempting to put me in prison for life. Your face, Shannon. The tension of 1. Do I like her 2? Does she like me 3? Am I good enough for her? For what if she turned me down? Story 32, getting a bad, like 2 ND 3 RD degree burn. I've broken 3 bones, got a multitude of concussions, had surgery, and much more, but when I got 2nd and 3rd degree burns on my chest, nothing compared. The pain is unending, and you can't escape it. Story 33, I can't believe this hasn't been said. Having a parent who is an alcoholic. This will be a long post before work, so I apologize. The scariest moment of my life happened when I was 17. My father was a heavy 7-day, a weak drinker, weed smoker, who almost ruined my life. When intoxicated, he would yell, cuss, break, hit my mother, never me, shockingly, and randomly disappear for day on end. Till this day, I will never understand why my mother put up with it all. But all chance when I was 17, another normal day in paradise when the same happens again for the 1,000th time. He comes in face talking. He's yelling at me for telling him to turn down his music that he's blasting in the garage because I'm trying to study for finals the next week. It's my house. I can do whatever the I want, and you can get the out, you little piece of. Does not even faze me cause I'm used it. So, of course, my mother comes down to defend me like she always does, but something is different today. My arms are twitching, and I can't control my breathing. He pushes my mother, and I snap. Let me say, I'm a very to myself kind of person who has never thrown a punch in my life up to this point. I have no idea what I'm doing, but for the first time, I just go berserk on his, totally expecting to get my kicked. After about 30 seconds, he falls due to how up he is, and I get him a headlock. This is where it gets scary. I do my first ever headlock, and my arms lock up. At this point, I don't give it anymore. I don't know where this power came from, but this 260-pound muscular man, and my mother cannot get me to let go. 30 seconds felt like days. I'm yelling, "You not so tough now. Are you Mr. Bad Piece of?" At this point, he's starting to pass out, but even though I notice this, I can't let go. I can't unlock my arms. Unless you have experienced this feeling, I can't explain to you why. I fully believe that if my mother hadn't just stopped yelling, gotten on her knees, and said, "Do not ruin your life because of him, please let go," I might have killed my father that day. I let go and just come back to reality and start hysterically crying for the first time in my life. A 17-year-old male just go crazy crying. My dad's so in shock it's like he's sober up. My mom just standing there. It is then I realized that I just released 17 years of anger. Until this day, I shack thinking about this moment in my life. To follow up, next day Mom kick him out, and he stopped drinking and has not touched it since. He tries to be a part of life, and I semi-forgive him, but it will never fully be there. TLDR, my father was an extreme drinker who ruined my family. My mother could not afford to take care of me alone, so she stayed with him through it all. When I turned 17, I snapped one day and was a few seconds away from choking him to death. People who haven't experienced will never know how painful it was to live with an alcoholic parent. Story 34, falling down on ice like in movies. I thought it was complete bull, how one leg goes flying up in the air and your smashes into the ground. I was actually talking to my neighbor about it, while shoveling my driveway. Then I slipped just like the movies. Story 35, domestic abuse. I always thought that only weak-willed people got themselves into situations like that. Now I realize the level of mental, social, and economic manipulation that happens outside of any physical altercations. It's brainwashing until you've been alienated from everyone else in your life. You feel like you rely on that one person for everything, and your sense of reality and perception is so challenged and twisted that you don't even know what to believe anymore. So you accept the truth as it is told to you. You begin to believe that you're the crazy one. That, well, maybe he didn't hit you that hard, and you were acting a little crazy. That if he doesn't remember it, then it wasn't actually him, because the real him would never hurt you. I never thought that I would be in that situation. Luckily, I got myself out of it after only a few months. I can't imagine being manipulated and confused like that for years. And with children involved, you don't get to own people like that just because your life is out of control. You don't get to own me. Edit honestly. Thank you, stranger. I need all the kindness and support I can get right now. It means a lot that someone read this and thought enough about it, and enough about me to acknowledge it with gold. I don't even know the perks of it, but the gesture alone is enough. I know there have been people who have been in way worse situations than I was, but I'm still figuring out how do you go back to normal when someone you loved and thought loved you tries to kill you. Thanks for making me feel less alone. 3 Sorry for emotional wall of text. Edit more gold. You guys are ridiculous and beautiful. How quickly fires go from a small spark to full-on lethal. First day of classes last semester. Wanted to start it off right, so I was cooking steaks for my girlfriend and myself. We cracked open some beers, sat on the couch, and waited for the potatoes in our new microwave. First thing I noticed was the sound. It was an evil, hissing sound. I looked up at the kitchen, and smoke was pouring out of the microwave's vent. Cue 20 seconds of repeating that the fire smoke was being produced at an alarming rate. It was already getting hard to breathe just 1 minute after it started. Girlfriend started trying to get the fire extinguisher, which was latched onto the wall in the pantry, but was too panicked to get it off. Cue my turn 2 minutes after the fire started. Visibility is very low, too low for me to see the latching mechanism of the fire extinguisher. I am breathing smoke now. I panically start trying to rip the fire extinguisher, latch and all, off the wall. No dice. I fumble around and eventually manage to free it. Cue the shock. 3 minutes after the fire started. Living room and kitchen have zero visibility. Breathing hurts badly. I am in shock. Holding the fire extinguisher, I try to read the label. I read the steps out loud. 1. Pull the pin. 2. Stand 3 to 5 feet away from flames. Pointing nozzle towards base of flames. 3. Squeeze handle. I repeat them. For times the information is not getting to my brain, I start muttering phrases. Electrical fire. Pull the pin. Call the fire department. Squeeze the trigger. Cue squeezing the trigger. The fire was eventually put out. The fire department showed up in only 10 to 15 minutes after we called them. I was inside of the apartment for at the most just 5 minutes. And in that time, I was dangerously close to passing out from excessive smoke inhalation. A few more minutes would have been death. I recommend that everyone make sure they know the location of their fire extinguishers and nearest fire escapes and exits. Try to always have a plan for every situation, because just a minute too slow exiting a situation can mean the difference between life and death. Story 36. The overwhelming prejudice against men in the family court system. You'll never understand how I've made it this far. When Eva Mai later said that outside of the mother being a needle user, there was no way I'd win. Go determination. Story 37. The intensity of love you can feel for your own child. To put it bluntly, I was largely dead inside for a variety of reasons until my first child was born a couple of years ago. Sure, I love my spouse, but other than that, I was essentially emotionless. Then a tiny 6-pound wonder of a little girl came into my life and totally rewired me. Not overnight, but faster than I ever would have thought possible, and it had never occurred to me that it was possible at all. Now my heart breaks with love on nearly a daily basis. And the funny thing is, it's not just about my own kiddo. I find myself smiling inwardly at other little ones and cannot bear to hear of kids suffering. It's like this tiny little human pulled some kind of emotional jujitsu on me that made me totally vulnerable. When people used to say, you'll understand when you have a child, I used to roll my eyes. Story 38. The kick of a shotgun. When I was a kid, I never fired a shotgun until I had been shooting for multiple years, not just 22, and finally used a shotgun. Jesus Christ, they are surprisingly powerful. Story 39. Dude, I was on acid once and saw God. Everything about religion made way more sense after that. Intense, life-changing experience. Talk about having your mind blown. PTSD. Thought it was for crybabies who weren't tough enough. Now I have complex PTSD. Those movie reproductions don't even come close to the torment that is PTSD. I feel the pain of our veterans and loathe the vast many who ridicule them. Sadly, I was one of them for a while. Story 40. Marine Corps boot camp. Actually, movies usually tone it down, and it is still seeming exaggerated. The only way I got through was to live each day as its own. There's no tomorrow, no yesterday. Story 41. About once a year, the flu. Get to stay home and play video games, I think to myself. Then I get it, and it's terrible. Rather be healthy and at work. Story 42. The advantages you have from being rich. I was born to a wealthy family, was in a private high school, but got expelled for actually committing robbery. I then went to public school where the other kids were way worse off. I had a lot of friends there who never once got in trouble, who got way better grades than me, and generally were way better people. I failed courses left and right and got arrested regularly. 10 years later, I graduated from the best college, and now have the best job and am in the best position in life just cause mommy and daddy could afford to bail me out every time and keep throwing money at me till I turn it around and got Edo a good college and graduated. My friends, on the other hand, had basically zero room for error, and one misstep or stroke of bad luck was impossible to come back from.